The Las Vegas Raiders are the biggest losers from this offseason. The biggest need for the Raiders going in to the start of this offseason was that they needed a quarterback, and they didn't get that. You signed Gardner Minshew, but that's not saying much. Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, you arguably have one of the worst quarterback rooms in the National Football League. And with how tough your schedule is this year, you got to go against Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew aren't going to be good enough to get you wins in those games. And 4 out of 5 of Antonio Pierce's wins last year came against backup quarterbacks. And anytime they played up against a good team, they didn't have too much success, and Aiden O'Connell didn't look good. He didn't look good against Kansas City. They won that game in spite of him only completing 1 pass outside of the first quarter. That's embarrassing. You know how lucky you have to be to win a game that way? And then, defensively, yeah, you're really good, but offensively, in a quarterback-driven league, especially when you're in a conference that's home to the majority of the NFL's top quarterbacks, having mid to below average quarterback play isn't going to cut it. And then to make things a lot worse, you hire Luke Getsy to be your offensive coordinator. Luke Getsy at this point has showed that he's one of the worst OCs in the game, and he wasn't even your preferred number 1 option. So you didn't really upgrade when it came to your offensive coordinator position. You didn't upgrade that quarterback at all. You can think that Aiden O'Connell is going to get better, but history shows us that quarterbacks drafted outside of the first round have a low chance of being successful. And there's only been about 4 or 5 quarterbacks since 2015 that have been non-first rounders that have turned into Pro Bowl level players. I don't see that out of Aiden O'Connell. He looked good against the LA Chargers when they quit on Brandon Staley, but I promise you that shit ain't going to fly against Jim Harbaugh, and you got a good chance of going 0-2 against Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers with Aiden O'Connell at quarterback. In spite of the fact that you feel you may have a better roster than the Chargers have better coaching than you. With Aiden O'Connell having Luke Getsy being his OC, I could see his development being stunted. If he was playing under Cliff Kingsbury, then there's a little bit more reason to be optimistic about him. Gardner Minshew, he was really good because he was getting coached by Shane Steichen. You saw how Philadelphia's offense dropped off last year with Shane Steichen leaving to take Indianapolis' head coaching job. Jalen Hurts, we don't know how good he is not playing under Shane Steichen. Shane Steichen also was Justin Herbert's OC when he had his phenomenal rookie year. The Raiders, just to me, put themselves in a really bad spot by not being able to walk away with a franchise-changing quarterback and not getting a good, proven offensive coordinator. You should have went ahead and beefed up the salary for Cliff Kingsbury to make sure that you didn't lose him to Washington. That was a big mistake on your part, and then you didn't even trade up to get any of the top quarterbacks in this year's draft. Now, nobody expected for the Atlanta Falcons to do the dumb shit that they did and take Michael Penix in the top 10. But you still should have traded up into the top 5, the top 7 to make sure that you could have solidified you walking away with one of the best signal callers in this draft class. Because the only thing that's keeping the Raiders from being a playoff team is quarterback. Their offensive line isn't that good, but it's a tad bit better than what it was last year. You got a pretty decent wide receiving core. Your defense can play at a top 12 level this year. But having bad quarterback play is what's going to be the detriment to Antonio Pierce and this squad this year. Aiden O'Connell is not it. And that's the problem with a lot of NFL fans. When it comes to their quarterback situation, they keep defending mid and below average instead of going out there and trying to get great. Having great quarterback play is going to be the difference between you being a Super Bowl team and you being a team that could be competing for the title of the worst team in the league this year. That's how bad your quarterback room is. If Gardner Minshew was as good as a QB as what people think, he wouldn't be bounced around as much as a journeyman bridge stop quarterback or a journeyman backup. And Aiden O'Connell, I really don't see it with him. He had his moments against bad teams, but when he was going up against good opponents like the Miami Dolphins, he threw 3 interceptions in that game, and he couldn't even complete a pass outside of the first quarter against Kansas City. I don't see it with the Raiders this year. I just don't. They are one of the biggest losers from this offseason. The biggest need that they had was finding themselves a quarterback. And it's just really disappointing because I like Antonio Pierce. And many people went to war for this guy getting the head coaching job. Hell, Max Crosby threatened to retire. Or not threatened to retire, but threatened to ask for a trade if Antonio Pierce didn't become the Raiders' new head coach. He gets the opportunity, and it just seems like he just kind of is playing around with it because look what he has to work with that quarterback, and he's a defensive-minded coach. If he was an offensive-minded coach, then things would be a little bit more different. But you hire Luke Getsy. Your reasoning for hiring Luke Getsy was, well, when we played against Chicago Bears and you was calling plays, the Bears were tearing us up with no Justin Fields, no starting running backs. I think that shows more about your defense than it shows Luke Getsy being a competent offensive coordinator because there are games when he called the same play 3 straight times in a row. His offense is nothing but screens, bubble screens, out routes, drags. It's no creativity to Luke Getsy's offense. The Raiders are not in a good position going into this season. They put themselves in the hole by not getting a quarterback. The good thing is that you should be bad enough this year where you should be in position to land one of the top signal callers in the 2025 NFL draft. And once you get you a proven or a good quarterback, rather that be in free agency, maybe Dak Prescott hits free agency and you get him, you're a playoff team. Or if you draft Shedeur Sanders or Carson Beck, that also could make you a playoff team. The Raiders are a quarterback away from making it back to the postseason. But right now, with what you have at quarterback, you don't have enough to win with how tough this conference is, home to the NFL's best quarterbacks. You need a lot more, especially when you have 2 of them in your same division that you see twice a year, Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes.